repression in La Paz on Thursday. The police fired tear gas at relatives who were carrying the coffins of some of those killed in the military and police operation against the peaceful blockade of a fuel depot in Sencata. Our correspondent in La Paz, Alejandro Kirk, has the latest details on the events in Bolivia.
What happened yesterday was grotesque. We've seen the extraordinary images recorded by our colleagues like Freddie Morales here, who were present when the events took place. It's grotesque because the military couldn't even let a funeral parade pass through, something so obvious. There was no violence. It only sought to demonstrate the pain and protest. Then suddenly, the police launched tear gas against the people. It's horrifying. We have to remember as well that when they killed 9 people in Cochabamba, the de facto president Jeanine Áñez tweeted to indicate her tremendous pain for the loss of human life. And she's done exactly the same. So here, we're seeing a parallel double discourse. While speaking about the need for elections and a transitory government, which will only be in place for 3 months and won't change anything, we're also seeing the coup try and consolidate. For example, today, the prosecutor's office is acting against President Evo Morales regarding a strange video shared by the Interior Minister, with President Morales supposedly speaking to a narco-trafficker. But you don't see anything, you just hear voices. And with that, the prosecutor's office is saying that it's necessary to open a case for sedition. It's also allowing the de facto foreign minister to make a formal complaint against Mexico, where Evo Morales has been granted asylum for political persecution.
Our correspondent Alejandro Kirk from La Paz. In other news, Colombia's defense minister says 3 protesters were killed in Thursday's general strike and 122 were injured. The stoppage affected almost every region of the country and was the biggest mobilization Colombia has seen for many years. Millions of workers, students and campesinos took part with peaceful demonstrations by tens of thousands in Bogotá, Medellín and Cali. But many of the protests ended with police repression. The strike was called against the killings of social movement leaders as well as the neoliberal education, pension and labor policies of President Iván Duque. Hernan Tobar, a correspondent in Bogotá, can bring us up to speed on the events.
It was an event of almost historic proportions. Environmentalists, unions and students protested against the government's policies of war and its lack of dialogue with the people. They protested against fracking and the transnational companies that are involved in this. They demanded more resources for education. There were alleged police infiltrators in the protests in Bogotá, trying to create chaos and violence among the protesters. In other cities around the country, a curfew was called due to the escalating violence, particularly in Cali. Police violence and repression prevailed throughout the night, and there are several reports of people being attacked after the march. At Bolivar Plaza, we could see how police forces attacked people that passed by with tear gas and stun grenades. And on our way back to the National Park, we witnessed police officers dressed as civilians, acting as if they were safeguarding the surroundings. The Education Federation leader stated that there were indeed police members trying to disrupt the peaceful demonstrations, and so they did. Human rights organizations have denounced the excessive use of force used by the police, and a photo has gone viral on social media which shows the police brutally beating a woman.
Hernan Tobar from Colombia. And now let's get an update on the situation in Chile, as protests there against the government of Sebastián Piñera continue. Leonel Retamal has the latest.
Chileans continue to protest on the streets, and now it's 5 weeks since demonstrations began on October 18th. Now there are calls to fill Plaza Italia once again, now called Dignity Plaza. Public workers are still on strike, calling for better pay and joining the larger protests in the country. According to the Institute of Human Rights, the figure of injured people has increased to 2,500 people due to police repression. The number of sexual abuses cases and rapes is now 73. The most worrying number was given by the Ophthalmological Society, 283 cases of eye mutilations due to gunshots by the police. New mobilizations are scheduled for this week in Plaza Italia, called by several organizations, where they will continue to demand a constituent assembly, better health and living standards.
That was a correspondent, Leonel Retamal. Still to come, Barbados is set to loosen laws on citizenship. Don't go away.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back, and let's continue with news. In the Caribbean, Antigua and Barbuda's Embattled Police Commissioner Wendell Robinson has requested a transfer to another position within the public service. This as he faces imminent termination by the Police Service Commission. Robinson was suspended in April 2018 after 3 junior policemen accused him of sexual harassment and inappropriate conduct. The alleged incidents are said to have occurred between 2016 and 2018. As part of his transfer request, Robinson has asked that any new position is commensurate with his current rank. Barbados' cabinet is to expand the categories of people who can become Barbadians. It will be the most sweeping change in the pathway to citizenship since the island's independence in 1966. By January, a new bill to amend the Immigration Act will go before the Parliament. Key changes announced by the Home Affairs Minister include citizenship being made available to a grandchild or a great-grandchild of a Barbadian citizen. Currently, only parents are allowed to grant citizenship by descent. While electricity has been restored across Barbados following 2 days of power outages earlier this week, water shortages still persist. The island's Water Resources Minister explains that many reservoirs are at a low capacity and major restoration work will be carried out.
We are getting in the process of finalizing a CDB loan and a contract to restore, I think, 11 or 12 of the reservoirs. But our reservoirs in Barbados are in a real bad condition, in a very, very bad condition. We expect to have the current reservoirs that we're repairing completed, that we're replacing entirely, completed by the end of January. So those who are serviced by the Fort George Reservoir that have been experiencing some issues over the last 6 or 7 months, that's the reason. The reservoir cannot be filled past 1/3 capacity. That obviously affects the pressure in the reservoir, so it affects the delivery of water to people being serviced by that reservoir.
Over 10,000 people marched in Sao Paulo, Brazil to commemorate Black Awareness Day. This holiday has been celebrated since former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva commemorated Brazil's Afro-descendant population since 2003.
Racism dominates the day-to-day of the last country that abolished slavery in the continent. Wages between black and white people in Brazil differ by over 70%, according to official figures. In the past trimester, unemployment grew only among the black population, and in the outskirts of Sao Paulo, the richest city in the country, the life expectancy of white people is 20 years longer than that of black people.
Brazil is a racist country. According to statistics, a black person is killed here every 9 minutes. Life is not easy here.
During the celebration of Black Awareness Day, people recall the implementation of racial quotas by President Lula da Silva 15 years ago. In 2019, for the first time in history, black people are a majority in public universities.
Thanks to the racial quotas, Afro-descendants know there's a place they can occupy. But we also need to take town halls, state governments, and have larger political representation.
But far-right President Jair Bolsonaro has not only diminished the existence of racism. During his campaign, he even said that black people are not even good at procreating.
This is a fascist government. Our goal is to overthrow them. There is no dialogue with authorities. During the campaign, Bolsonaro was honest about his fascist, racist, homophobic, and misogynistic views. There is no dialogue with racists.
The day also marked the second year that Black Awareness Day was celebrated without Marielle Franco. People are still waiting to find out who ordered the murder of the councilwoman. Recent developments allege links between the Bolsonaro family and the two killers, who met up before the murder in a place near the current president's home.
We do not believe anything. We think that whosoever killed Marielle is up there, but we cannot make accusations without proof. I think the mastermind of the murder is someone racist, a homophobic anti-Brazilian who does not respect life.
A black person in Brazil is almost 3 times more likely to be murdered than a white person. According to protesters, an anti-crime reform package pushed by Justice Minister Sergio Moro eases the responsibility of the police in cases of murder. On top of this, Bolsonaro has pushed for the loosening of gun laws, something that can only make the statistics worse.
Uruguay goes to the polls this Sunday in a runoff vote for the presidency. On Thursday, the two candidates closed their campaigns. The Broad Front candidate Daniel Martinez said his rival's neoliberal policies would take Uruguay down the same route as Argentina under Mauricio Macri.
To think that shrinking the state is going to be done without a social cost for the majority is at least elusive, and they know how this ends. As in Argentina, as in Brazil, as what is happening in our wounded Latin America. Fundamentalist recipes, they forget that in nations like ours, the role of the state is to help the weakest, to provide equal opportunities and equal starting points. Those who forget condemn the nation to failure, and the people end up paying the consequences of its fundamentalist policies with hunger. It's not about distributing poverty, it's about distributing the wealth, but with justice and guarantees, like the Broad Front has done. We say this very clearly to a coalition that has united to confront the Broad Front without knowing the factors that united them.
Students marched in Venezuela to support the Bolivarian Revolution on University Students' Day, November 21st. The march set off from 2 sites in Caracas. The students expressed their support for the policies that have made university education available to young people from poorer communities. Talks between the Venezuelan government and the opposition continue moving forward. The most recent step was the creation of a commission to name the members of a new National Electoral Council ahead of parliamentary elections in 2020.
Behind this door, the preliminary committee is meeting to pick the new leaders of the National Electoral Council. And while the radical opposition denies it, this is an achievement of the national dialogue.
There are lawmakers from the main opposition party at the table, as well as from smaller parties. Representatives from all opposition sectors are taking part, as well as members of the ruling party. So even if they want to deny that there's talks, we are sitting down with them and talking. We have all the transcripts from the meetings.
The road to parliamentary elections is being built through these talks.
We worry about some declarations that say we are creating a new electoral court for presidential elections. But that's not true. We've been clear in saying that the next elections in Venezuela are parliamentary.
The radical opposition, which continues to call people out onto the street with the goal of ousting President Nicolas Maduro, is on the way out.
We are seeing how this conflict is being brought back under the rule of law by opposing sides. Meanwhile, a sector of the opposition, led by Juan Guaidó, keeps trying for a coup on the streets, something he's been doing since January and continues to fail at.
Violence failed, as did attempts to reenact the coup in Bolivia.
Venezuelans have the right to express ourselves in peace, to solve our own issues. We don't want more violence. There are opposition sectors that think violence is the answer. that think the crisis will be solved by making it worse. Those of us taking part in the dialogue table are looking for ways out of the crisis. We are looking for mechanisms so the country can take back the time it has lost. For example, the sanctions imposed by the US are the opposite of activating our productive sector.
But the streets speak for themselves. Chavistas mobilized en masse on November 16th, the same day the radical opposition claimed would be the revolution's last.
After the break, workers reject the visit of French President Emmanuel Macron to their town. Stay with us.
Who's moving the chessmen? What interests motivate the actors behind each event? The board is deployed there. Critical move. Investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on Telesur.
Now with news from Africa. South African Airways has reached an agreement with striking workers, effectively ending a week-long strike that brought the airline to its knees. A statement by the workers' unions said they accepted a 5.9% pay rise after grueling talks with management. They have since instructed all their members to report for duty on Saturday morning. Workers at the embattled airline downed tools on November 15, demanding an 8% wage increase and a halt to a retrenchment program that will result in 900 workers losing their jobs. Scores of workers in South Africa protested at the ArcelorMittal steel plant in the town of Saldanha, as the plant is set to close, leaving nearly 1,000 people unemployed. ArcelorMittal announced earlier this month that it would wind down operations at the plant north of Cape Town because it was no longer viable on the export market. According to the company manager, the plant has incurred substantial losses in the past and the medium-term outlook remains bleak. But closing down the operation will mean extensive job losses in the town, which heavily depends on the plant. The World Health Organization has warned that insecurity is hampering the fight against the Ebola epidemic in the Democratic Republic of Congo. WHO Director of Emergencies Michael Ryan told journalists on Friday that fighting between government forces and rebel groups in and around the Ebola epicenters in the east of the country has made it difficult for health workers to access certain areas where their services are needed. More than 2,000 people have lost their lives since the disease broke out in September last year.
From our perspective in WHO, we just want to express how alarmed we are that the lack of access and the lack of security is now preventing us ending this outbreak with our partners. Some quick numbers in terms of the specific. We believe we have the resources on the ground from a public health operations point of view to end the Ebola outbreak. The difficulty we collectively face at the moment is just when we need that unlimited and unfettered access to communities. We've lost that access in key areas, and this is a very dangerous and alarming development in this response. We've seen before.
Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth has declared Britain an illegal colonial occupier after it failed to adhere to a United Nations deadline to vacate the Chagos Islands. Under international law, they are part of Mauritius territory. A UN resolution adopted in May demanded the UK end its occupation of the islands located nearly 10,000 kilometers away from mainland Britain. The UK has leased the largest of the islands to the US military and claims it cannot vacate the islands for security reasons. More than 200,000 people on Papua New Guinea's Bougainville Island are voting in a referendum that could lead to an independent nation. The referendum is part of a 2001 peace deal. That agreement ended a civil war between pro-independence fighters and the Papua New Guinean security forces, who were supported by foreign mercenaries, paid by multinational mining corporations. A majority of the voters are expected to vote in favor of independence due to what they say is widespread racial discrimination and economic marginalization.
This is an important referendum. It is the people's right, and they're able to vote on how they see things. It's part of the peace process and part of Bougainville's culture.
On to Europe now. Dozens of workers who were laid off by the household appliances manufacturer Whirlpool in the French city of Amiens have protested against President Emmanuel Macron's visit to the town. The workers accused Macron of betraying them by failing to stop the redundancies at Whirlpool, as he had promised during his 2017 presidential campaign. More than 200 people lost their jobs when Whirlpool sold the plant to an investor who, after a year, declared bankruptcy and disappeared. That was despite receiving millions of euros from taxpayers in from the state aid.
Today what I'm asking Macron is to resign. He's worthless. That's all. When he says that he is from Amiens, suddenly he is from Amiens. I'm too. He is too. We agree. There is nothing exceptional about it. It is provocation he comes to clear the ground, as he was able to do during the 2 rounds of the 2017 presidential election. Obviously, as he was able to do in relation to his promise in October 2017. It's crap. He pissed us off.
And we end in China. The city of Zhuhai in the southern province of Guangdong is hosting the 6th edition of the China International Circus Festival, an event where companies from around the world present a wide variety of shows celebrating the diversity of the art.
More than 200 artists from 22 countries have gathered in the southern city of Zhuhai to participate in the 6th edition of the International Festival of Chinese Circus.
This festival is very important. I work in the circus industry, and it serves to promote Chinese companies, to share and compete with foreign figures. The audience also seems very happy, with a lot of ovations that move me.
The event will run until November 23, and a total of 24 circus companies are set to present performances, including extreme sports, aerial acrobatics, clowns, magic shows, and dance.
I am from the province of Guizhou. I hear about this festival. I wanted to bring my children to see the show so they can see Chinese artists, but also artists from other countries.
Latin America is represented by artists from Argentina and Colombia, who share their talent with representatives from China, Russia, the United States, France, Japan, Germany, among others.
I am a circus artist from Unha province in central China, and very soon we organize an international circus festival ourselves. I came to learn from this experience. It is also a great opportunity for the audience to see so many artists from different nations.
The International Chinese Circus Festival was held for the first time in 2013. It aims to promote the development of circus as an art form and of cultural exchange among people.
And with that, we end our news brief. But remember, you can find all of our stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And for our viewers in Africa, you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and 539 in Nigeria. And be sure to also check us out on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
Speriamo che non vogliamo la guerra, basta. Abbiamo fatto una guerra e abbiamo perso tantissima gente, tantissimi padri, nonni, amici.
为了保持身体健康，我冥想。
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Get your body. Tuesdays, only on Telesur.
From here to beyond the south. From here to the Caribbean or further north. Where can I see news connecting the whole south? From Washington. From Mexico. From Caracas. From Quito. From Havana. You can always see the news of